And this brings us up to Absolute Duo. This show is the story of Thor and Julie as they attend this kind of academy where they learn to use blazes, which are these manifestations of one's soul into a weapon. Thor is known as an irregular simply because his blaze does not manifest into an offensive weapon, but is in fact a shield. In the first episode, we see Thor as he first comes to the school. He meets a girl, Imari, they hit it off pretty quickly, and then they find that they have to go through the school's entrance exam, which is pretty much the person sitting next to you is now your first enemy, and everybody has to fight, and only those that win will be admitted into the school. Unfortunately, we see that, I personally thought that Imara was going to end up being the love interest of this story. We see that she's actually expelled from the school after she is defeated by Thor. We see that this is how the episode quickly progresses, and we see that, they're sorted into their classes, and we're introduced to Julie pretty early on. Thor first sees her early in the episode. She's staring at the cherry blossoms. When she joins him in the class, she decides to sit next to him, but will not speak to him and just kind of stares at him really, really awkwardly. And we just everybody gets paired up in their temporary duos, and Thor is paired with Julie, and we see the kind of awkwardness of them progress through the episode and slowly fade away. I felt that this episode was a really good introduction to the story. I feel that this is, we don't get a lot of cool, magic-based shows. Well, at least ones that that I really like. I did feel that the blaze weapons are kind of overused in a way, and they really just seem like Zanpakutos from Bleach with their, the way that they appear and the fact that everybody has a different one. So that's where I was coming in from, but I really think it was a good, strong start to the series.
Yeah, episode 1 was pretty good. From what I can remember, I guess.
So Todd, what are you going to score this episode?
I'd probably give it a 3.5. It was a relatively strong start for the show, and I think out of all the magical harem-esque shows, I have the most faith in this one, I think.
I'm gonna have to give it a 3 simply because while I did really enjoy the show, I feel that there's some lack of originality overall in it. We'll have to see as the story plays out in the episodes moving on. I know moving into episode 2, we see more with Thor and Julie as they, learn to deal with each other and kind of, accept each other's differences. We learn a little bit more about the other supporting members in the classroom. The funny teacher, with we come to find out later that she has a split personality. But we see them, really just kind of progress in episode 2 with more. It really, really is just focusing on Thor and Julie's relationship for the first block of episodes. In episode 2, they're just kind of coming to terms with the fact that we see Thor. He really wants to be partnered with his friend. He wants to be partnered with Tora, who is a kind of a childhood friend from him. And he slowly realizes that he's got this more of this attachment to Julie. Episode 2 just was more character building. I would give it another 3 myself, simply because there's just not a lot that's going on in it. It doesn't, do anything super stellar.
Yeah, I would give it a 2.5. Not much happened to it. I mean, sure, the ending thing was kind of cool where they made the pact, but other than that, not a lot happened in this episode. I wasn't really too hot on it.
I felt that the vow that they make with the pact is pretty much they're getting married. I think that was really what they were trying to convey with that. At least that's how I felt about it. And that brings us into episode 3, where we see everybody is, they're settled in their duos. Everybody's recognizing their strengths and weaknesses, and we see that Thor and Julie are just kind of training with each other, really just trying to figure out where each of their strengths and weaknesses as a group even out. And, they're told that they're going to have to compete in, like, they're going to have to battle all the other duels in the school. Well, in their class, I mean. And so we get to see how some of these other groups are working and some of the other tactics they come up with, be it deception, seduction, and that was just kind of interesting to see how they still come out on top. And we also find out that again their teacher, she has a split personality, and we find out one of the things that was early on taught to brought to the viewer's attention is that the blazes are not supposed to be able to harm other people. Um, but simply one having murderous intent can make it so a blaze can harm somebody. And also that just, breaking someone's blaze will, incapacitate them for at least 24 hours. Um, so we see Julie and Thor really struggle to defeat their teacher, and ultimately they come out on top simply by we see in the first episode, and it's kind of touched upon in the following episodes, that Thor's got this ability with his right hand where he can just like they haven't explained what it is yet, but he can like gather up some kind of energy in his hand and punch things with it. And Julie took it upon herself to name it Mjolnir after Thor's hammer. I thought that this episode was pretty action packed. It was a good change of pace for the show. Um, I'm still gonna give it a 3. Um, I would have liked to see more of the battles than the really really short ones that we got. I feel that they could have been drawn out more.
I thought episode 3 was really good. Um, just strictly action speaking. You know, I thought the fight with the teacher was insanely cool, and I kind of liked the twist they had that she is part psychopath, but that's what makes me love her even more.
It was a really good change of pace. It was a great twist to it. But again, I would have liked to see more of the battles. I feel like that whole thing could have been, another, 2 episodes total. And I mean, as for an action standpoint, that would have really satisfied me. And, that brings us into our most recent episode, which is episode 4. Um, Episode 4, we see that Thor and Julie decide, you know, you know, that they want to go and kind of unwind and leave the school. So they leave the school and kind of go on this date, even though it's not supposed to really be one. Um, we're also introduced to the exception, Lilith. She's a transfer student from England who initially wants Thor to leave his duo with Julie and become hers. She's called an exception because the rules don't apply to her. And we're taught very early on that duos are not meant to be broken. As they make their vow, it's literally until death do us part. Except in Lilith's case, she's allowed, for whatever reason that's unknown to us at this point, she's allowed to break up duos as she sees fit. She's really kind of a forceful character, which I think it really is fitting to the way that she's designed, and even her blaze, which is a rifle that we see later in the episode. So she takes Thor aside, they have tea and some snacks, and she attempts to kind of wine and dine him and get him to leave Julie and join her duo. He declines, being the straight arrow that he is, and he leaves and goes on his date-esque adventure with Julie to the city to help her go shopping for more clothes, which, pretty much it turns into a little fashion escapade at the show where pretty much everything he says that he likes, she buys, and then it turns into this thing where the shopkeeper that's helping them just keeps giving her more clothes because she thinks that she's super cute and wants to see more cute things on her. they leave the shop and kind of get we have uh, Tachibana and Hokataka have he had Thor initially asked them to come with him. They declined. Instead, they wanted to be super sneaky, spy, because everybody thinks that Thor and Julie are doing explicit things behind closed doors because they're roommates. Um, they start to get hit on by some delinquents who want them to come have fun with them. Thor tries to step in and help them, only to have Lilith show up and shoot them all. That was the end of our episode there. It again was more character building. We also kind of see what Tachibana and Hokataka are capable of, as far as not being very trusting, or being kind of sneaky is a good word, I would say. So it was just more character building. And we'll have to see. Really, I'm interested to see how Lilith is going to play into everything moving forward. So as far as this episode goes, so far the series for me is really just is a whole bunch of threes. It gets another solid 3 from me.
Yeah, this episode was okay. I think Absolute Duo has a lot of great potential, in my opinion. I think it's got a pretty interesting premise, and some of the stuff that it has with Blazes makes it really interesting. But I think a lot of this cliched, slice of life stuff that they're throwing in there kind of holds it back. And I remember at the beginning of the episode, they set 2 freaking minutes aside because he accidentally touched her boob in bed, and he had to explain why. And I'm like, this isn't necessary at all. They should not be wasting this much time on something this stupid. While slice of life stuff and ecchi stuff is completely fine, it's like you try to use it more sparingly, and I don't know, and I guess a better way, because I'm just, it held this episode back to, a 2.5 for me, and, it just wasn't that hot of an episode, except for, the new transfer student, which has she's got an awesome new blaze, and I think that was the best part of the episode, was the transfer student and her showing off her blaze. It's got potential, and I just wish, it kind of showed more action and things like that, instead of, some of the more cliched love stuff.
Now, as far as the opening and the ending themes for this show, I think that they're both great. The opening animation brings a lot of questions to me, though, particularly around Imamara, or I'm sorry, I'm probably even saying that wrong. It's Imamari. I'm sorry. It brings up questions about Imamari, with whether or not she's actually going to be brought back into the show, considering she's in the opening. So I'm anxious to find out if it's just an opening animation, or if it's really just kind of some foreshadowing.
The opening is fantastic. Awesome song, awesome animation, probably one of the best of the season. The ending actually changed in episode 4. Which I did like episode 4's ending rather than the one we've been getting recently, but still, it's okay.
Well, we'll look forward to more things from this moving forward. All right, so you want to roll with Rolling Girls?
Yeah.
All right, do you want to do the synopsis for them?
Okay, Rolling Girls. 10 years after the Great Tokyo War, each prefecture in Japan has split up into independent nations. So it pretty much showed well, at least what we've seen in some of the recent episodes, they're kind of like giant robots that had a fight, and that, like I said, has caused Japan to split up into independent nations. Each one is ruled by a prophet called a best, and they are followed by an army called the rest. And they pretty much kind of compete to take over, territories and things like that. This story follows 4 girls, Nozomi, Chihaya, Yukina, and Ai, as they go around and mediate fights across Japan on their motorcycles. And that's really the story, is they just kind of go around and really solve problems is kind of what it's all about. Episode 1 introduces us to the world and what it's like. There's a lot of exposition at the beginning, and it's a little hard to follow. It goes really fast, and there's a lot going on screen, so it's just a little difficult to kind of understand without watching it one or two more times. And we see a fight between one group and someone named Matcha Green. She looks like a Power Ranger. And it is a really epic battle, and Nozomi hops in, and it's batshit crazy, and pretty much we just get the gist of the world, how it is and how fights work out and all that stuff.
One of my favorite things from this episode was Masami and Kuniko's eating contest at a ramen shop. As we come to find out, Masami is the matcha green person, and Kuniko really is trying to just figure out if that's true, because she wants to fight him. There's obviously some history between them that's foreshadowed in the first episode, and this eating contest is more just. I felt that it was just for silliness. It was a lot of fun. Just to see these two go at it in a different way that didn't involve fists and explosions. Lightheartedness of the series kind of brings into it, despite the fact that there's a lot of action in it. It's just a lot of fun, and it's really refreshing. And as we previously that was stated before, this show literally is if FLCL threw up on Kill la Kill, if in the terms of its art and its action sequences.
That's definitely a good thing.
It's in no way a bad thing. I know that's a terrible analogy, a way to put this to describe this show, but honestly, I don't think that there's a better way to describe it.
Yeah. But that is episode 1, really. It's just one giant fight scene and introduce the world and what it is. What did you think of it?
I thought the episode is great. It's really good introduction, and I didn't know what to expect going into this because you had briefly described it to me beforehand, and I was really hesitant. And when I finally sat down and watched it, I was definitely not disappointed in it. Generally, I tend to shy away from shows that have a really a female only cast, but shows like this and Cancol this season are really surprising me and having to make me rethink that whole thought process for myself. I would give this episode a 4.
Yeah, episode 1 is really solid. The art and animation is absolutely spectacular, and the colors that they use are fantastic, and it's hyper stylistic and really fun and lighthearted and silly, and just really something that is my type of show. And it was the first 5 out of 5 I gave this season for a first episode, so it was absolutely fantastic, and I absolutely cannot wait for more. And then we go on to episode 2, which it kind of leaves off from episode 1, where the Masami's group, the rest, I'm not exactly sure what they're called. They actually have a group name, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. They all got on a roller coaster, and it turns out it was booby-trapped by the girl that Matcha Green was fighting in episode 1, and she's pretty much using them as hostages to, bring out Matcha Green, aka Masami.
Masami, she fights for the group called the Tokorozawa. And Kuniko, she is part of the Hisagashi Murayama. Wow, those are just really long names.
Yeah. So Matcha Green comes in, saves the day, after a very long fight, and turns out she was unmasked, so everybody knows, but turns out everybody already did know. And that is really the episode, besides, her, Masami and the other girl fighting to the point where they're both in the hospital. And that was really episode 2.
Well, we also see that Nozomi decides that she wants to take Matcha's green place, since she, is, her, and, sets out on her motorcycle to, take the job requests that were sent to Matcha Green. And one of these first requests, is, leads her to the girl in the gas mask that we previously had seen in the first episode briefly, and again in the second episode, we see that it is Chiaya. She's also, Ai joins her, and as well as, what's the other girl's name?
I,
and then there's the other girl.
Chiaya, Jesus. Yukina.
Yeah. And so she's joined by Ai and Yukina, and they set out on their little adventure on their motorcycles into the next episode. So as far as this episode went, there's a lot that happened, and it was nice to see that kind of, everybody already knew that Masami was already Matcha Green, because I was really kind of wondering, how would you keep that from so many people, especially the people that are under you? And it just didn't seem possible. It really, really wasn't. And Masami's reasoning for hiding her identity from Nozomi specifically was touching, but I had to side with Nozomi that, yes, she realizes that she's not a best, and that she doesn't really want to die, but she should at least be allowed to worry about her friend. And so, as far as, on that note, this show is just solid. The only real complaint with overall about this series so far is it's a little on the slow side.
Yeah.
I really think that it's a little slow. But I would still definitely give this episode a 3.5.
Yeah. Episode 3 had a lot of great action in it as well. It followed up nice from episode 2. And episode 2, I would give a 4, because, it wasn't, plot-wise, it kind of was a little slow, and, I don't know, that's pretty much my only complaint and why it's not a 5, but, the art and animation stayed consistent and just looked really nice, and I think one of the scenes with the other girl, the leader of the other group, like, she had, like, a flashback, and it felt to me, like, unnecessary, and we didn't really care, and we really didn't need to see it, so,
well, I think it was...
that's pretty much why.
Well, I think that it was, good in the aspect that we see that Kuniko started out as wanting to be a hero, to imitate the heroes that she had in her books when she figured out that they weren't real. And somewhere along the way, she became a villain. And for whatever reason, her, lieutenant didn't want her to remember this. And I really would like to know why. Was she forced into becoming this villain, or,
it's, I don't know. It could be something for the future.
We also find out that the character, the president, Misono, she is collecting those heart-shaped jewels, and that plays a big role in the third episode.
Yeah. Speaking of the third episode, episode 3, we're now on the adventure, or Nozomi's adventure of going around and mediating things, and they're heading to Tokyo. Once they arrive there, I guess it's this, giant, colorful metropolis where it's, the aesthetic is very, very different than what we've seen, in the last 2 episodes. And this episode is almost like I don't know. It takes a complete left turn as to what we've seen so far. So it comes off a little weird. Um, they've got their stone, whatever this stone heartstone is. And I don't know. One of the leaders in Tokyo lost her stone. I don't know what she is. She kind of acts like the police is what their group is. They keep order in Tokyo, and she had accidentally lost her stone, and I think she thought she owned there was only one that existed. So when she saw Chiaya's stone, she thought, Chiaya had stolen it, so they take them under arrest, and they try to explain that no, that's actually Chiaya's stone. Well, she said, well, if that's true, go find my stone, and if you can't find it, we're gonna punish you. I don't know. They really didn't say.
They said
So
she said that they had till sundown to find her missing stone or stolen stone. That otherwise they were going to receive capital punishment, and they never really expand on what what capital punishment means for them.
So this whole episode, they set out and look for the stone inside a giant city. And that is the episode.
There's a few side plots that evolve into this. We see that, again, these stones seem to be everywhere, and that there are people that want them. Um, the plot. There's also a little bit of a side story with a group called Dynamite Bomber. It's not explained a whole lot. Um, we know that they had been making threats, and they had blown up one bomb at some point prior to this episode. And everybody seems to be really, really scared of them. They initially assumed that Nozomi and her group were a Dynamite Bomber when they first showed up. We all So that was kind of interesting. But again, I feel that this episode is really slow. Um, it just it They seem to get a bunch of little things done, but it just doesn't make you feel like there's a whole lot going on.
Yeah.
Just an interesting aspect of the way the way the city is to me it looked like that it was in a giant dome. I know that they made a comment that it was like super hot in there, and that there's like this year-round festival that's always going on. So that was kind of interesting. As far as this episode goes, I feel that this was the weaker episode of the ones. So I have to give it a 2.
Yeah, this episode, like I said, takes a left turn, or almost takes a complete 180 from what we've seen so far. Things change. The pace slows way down. There's little to no action. I think the aesthetics still remain as great as ever, and I think some of the comedy was really strong in the episode. But to be honest, it kind of got boring and confusing is what is really kind of what happened. And it's unfortunate because this show, I think, is still great. But, I'm just not sure, what it's trying to do right now. And, I would have to give this episode, a 2.5. It just wasn't the greatest thing I've seen. And it just kind of, as I was watching the episode, I sat there and I'm just thinking, like, right in the middle, I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm just, I know what was going on, but it was still just so weird compared to what we've seen. So, hopefully things get better in the next episode. Things get faster and more action, and the story is told in a more coherent way. So that's really my main concern, is that the story is being told, in a more understandable, easy to follow way, rather than what they're trying to do now. So, and that's Rolling Girls. As for the opening and endings, in my opinion, the opening was excellent. I think it's the best of the season. I think it was animated nicely. It was the song sounds fantastic. The visuals are very nice with the super bright colors and the fights going on in the background. Just a really, really awesome opening, and I just loved it.
I feel that the art and animation for the opening was really, really good. I don't feel that the music really matches it. Um, it's not bad music. It's just kind of I feel that it's more forgettable, and the ending. I feel the ending is more upbeat and more fitting to the show. Um, so,
The
but
ending visuals are very nice.
yeah, I will agree. Yes, the ending visuals are extremely nice. But I just don't think that the music in the opening ending to me is very kind of forgettable. So, but we'll see how that changes moving forward with them. All right.
Last up,
Okay.
Durarara.
So all right, and this brings us to the last series of the our episode today. And the one that Todd and I have been looking forward to the most this season. It is Durarara Season 2. Alright. Durarara Season 2 drops us right back into Ikebukuro with Mikado and his friends as some time has passed since the end of the last season, and we see that life in Ikebukuro has carried on. There's a load of new characters that we are introduced in these first couple episodes, and it's nice to see that they do touch on some of the ones that were, you know, leaving at the end of the last season. Um, episode 1 opens to a police chase between Celti and the super mean police officer, also on a motorcycle. He's chasing her down, and we don't really get a whole lot of context right away what's going on. As they decide that they go through this police chase, and you know we see Celti have the motorcycle turn back into the horse, and it runs up the side of a building and turns into a giant kite and floats away. And the first couple episodes, they keep doing this, step back in time thing where they just rewind everything and tell another story and then go back forward in time and then rewind it some more. And so we get a whole bunch of stuff going on. We find out that there is a serial killer on the loose in Ikebukuro that people on the internet have come to call Hollywood for the fact that they dress up in different monster costumes. Um, and go around and murder people. Um, we in the first and here in the first episode we find that Mikado and Henri are out to meet a new student that is moving to Ikebukuro and show them around. We don't really get to see where they get where that ends up with them as they're quickly distracted. And then most of this episode seems to focus solely on Celti and the things going on in her life. As an introduction back into this world, this was an amazing episode, and I was really hesitant going back and watching this series just because I'm a huge fan of the dub. I was really afraid that I was going to have a hard time following a lot of the things with the subtitles. I was not disappointed. Things were easy to follow. And I really feel a lot of my fears that way was really just kind of put to rest. But it was a great episode. Todd, what are your thoughts?
Good episode because, they recap what's happened in a way that wasn't too boring. The the crazy storytelling from last season is back, with the rewinding and the going forward and the going way back, and lots of new interesting characters that were introduced as well. Some new storylines that are going to be developed later on. It was a solid episode. I would give it a 4. I don't think it was the greatest thing ever, but it was definitely very good. And really, it's just kind of an introduction back into the world. I mean, and a lot had happened, and a lot is still going on. So, they really are dropping us just right back in the middle, in the thick of it.
And a 4 is a great score for this episode. I really feel that it was great the way that they dropped us back into it, and it's really strong. As we move into episode 2, really focuses on. Again, we see some more of the interaction of Celti and what's the other guy's name?
Shinra.
We see some more interactions between Shinra and Celti. And for whatever reason, Celti has decided to put him inside this giant ball. It kind of forgets him there. So that was humorous. We also see Isaiah's sisters.
Best characters of the season. Well, the quiet one is.
All right, so and we're introduced. This episode primarily focuses on Isaiah's sisters, Mariru and Kururi. Kururi. Both of them are really kind of awkward in their own special way. One likes to only wear gym clothes at school and is super quiet, and then the other one, dresses like a bookworm and is like super perverted. Talking about that she has this really, really high sex drive, and this leads them to be quickly targeted at the school. They go to lunch, or have a break in class. That's not really said what happens, but everybody leaves the classroom and they come back and their desks have been vandalized with all these different things, and we see how each one of them takes care of it in their own special way. All right, and we have one of another of the new characters, Alba. He kind of points out that this other girl is the one that's responsible for this, and she kind of later on confronts him. Why did you why did you stop me from defacing the desk? Why did you rat me out? And he simply replies that you didn't swear me to secrecy. Well, at this point, her school bag burst into flames, and we kind of figure out that the sisters have something to do with this, and it's just assumed that they're huffing paint thinner by the teachers. Alba is then confronted outside by the twins, and who proceed to thank him. And he had mentioned that he thought that Curie was hot, was attractive, and so she kisses him, and then the other sister also kisses him. And that's episode. We see that again. They in the first episode, Celti was paid a lot of money, and she lost it in the police chase. The twins find this money, as well as a man who is injured by what's his name? I can never remember his name. By Shizuo, who basically interrupted an attempt between Hollywood and this person to capture them. Capture Hollywood, and he blasted them off with a park bench. Team Rocket away and everything. We see that Shinra is called to help this man that the twins have found at the Russian sushi place, and they decide to use because the guy can't pay for Shinra's services. The twins take the money that they found that was Celti's and give the guy the money so he can pay Shinra for his medical services. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly did he agree to do for them to get that money. Because if they're anything like Isaiah, nothing from them is free. So that's episode 2 and 3 kind of as they blurred together. We found out in episode 3 as well the identity of Hollywood, and how that plays into Shizuo's brother, and how he is all related into that. So if you really want to figure that out for yourself, give the episode a watch. You won't be disappointed. I don't want to spoil everything for you guys. Episode 2, I felt that it was a great building on, Isaiah's sisters, and allowing them to stand alone on their own story. I want to see more from Alba. I think that can be a very interesting character. I just want to see where he goes. I think episode 2 in my book, I'm going to give it a 4. And episode 3, I'm going to give it another 4.
Episode 2 was really good. I liked the new character a lot. I think he's has the potential to be really great. He's already interesting and fun, and I already like him a lot. I think it's little how he interacts with the sisters, I think, is really interesting. And, with that episode, I'd give it a 4.5. I thought it was, the best episode so far. Episode 3 slowed it down a little bit and, kind of mellowed out and kind of... It was really one of those episodes where it's planting seeds to grow later type of thing, like storylines are now really starting in this one. Especially what happened with the Hollywood and Shizuo's brother and all that stuff. I would give that one, I would probably say a 3.5, since it seemed a little more talky than usual. Yeah, I mean, that's really all I can say about him. I think episode 2, though, was really good. Not to say episode 3 wasn't good, but I think it could have been a little better.
So your score for episode 3?
3.5.
All right. My only regret for this show so far is there is a severe lack of Isaiah. He's made an appearance briefly in each episode so far. He really hasn't done anything, and just that's not like his character just kind of sit back and.
Yeah, his character got a redesign.
He's just kind of sitting there not doing anything. He can't just always be scheming, like he normally is, but usually he's got his hands out there doing some of the work.
Yeah.
So that is Durarara, Season 2, Episodes 1 through 3. Can't wait for Episode 4.
And with that, that's our very first episode of Anime Overload. Thank you very much for watching. We appreciate you coming in, listening to what we have to say about that. And every week we'll bring you our thoughts on the currently airing anime from Japan every season. So again, thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.